I have some breaking news in the Charlie Kirk situation. Alex Jones sat down with a former Utah House Representative, Phil Lyman. He was an eyewitness to the Charlie Kirk murder. Lyman dropped several bombshell details that nobody else is talking about. He also shares an opinion that blew my mind, and it might be correct. Also, are we getting the full story? What could Kash Patel and the FBI be doing right now to build trust with the FBI and the public? Also, Jasmine Crockett, she openly says that the Biden-Harris presidency was a failure because they failed to jail Donald Trump for the rest of his life. I want to go through this and other big stories. To help me do that, I have my special guest, Dr. Steve Turley. Dr. Turley, thank you so much for joining me.
Stephen, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Your channel is doing well, you guys. I've been following you for many years, so congratulations on that. I wanted to jump in. Obviously, we just crossed the 1 week anniversary of the shooting of Charlie Kirk. I know that you guys have been covering that. Alex Jones was able to track down a man that was there in the crowd. He happens to be a former House of Representatives for the state of Utah, Phil Lyman. Okay. He does an interview and he shares a couple of bombshells. I'm not going to show the full interview because it's about 45 minutes, but we've done a quick take clip to go through it. And then he shares something that I want to get your thoughts on. So let me pull this up and we'll watch it together and then react.
Yesterday, someone comes in and says, we've got video. He came off the roof. He came up here to the parking lot, got in the car with an individual and they drove away. Well, that's not the story that came, so that he escaped another route. And there are people who are coordinating this thing. I do not believe that 30-06 that they showed recovered in the bushes was ever on the roof. I think it was in the bushes to start with. And now I'm not saying that Tyler Robinson wasn't on the roof. I'm not saying he didn't pull a trigger. I know I was in very, very close proximity. So another interesting thing, like I say, I left the front of the stage. I wanted to meet some of my friends and bring them down front. So I was clear at the east end and I heard this loud boom. I heard this loud bang. And I turned around and I'm looking like, what was that? What was that? And pretty soon some people started, running. Everyone was trying to process. And I thought, this is a gunshot and there's going to be more of them. I thought it could turn into a mass shooting. So I go to the people closest to me. Everyone's ducking down behind the concrete retaining walls. And some of them were still kind of oblivious, but there were two people that were standing there. Two girls, very goth, very black, and I just walked, and I stepped up to the side of them and I said, did that not happen right here? Did you hear that? Was that right here? And they said, yeah, it was just right over there. So they're confirming, yeah, the shooter or wherever that sound came from is right here. The thing that didn't really dawn on me is that they were not running. They were not frightened. In fact, as I stepped up, I heard one of the girls, and they were talking to each other and they're looking at these kids, looking at the scene down below them of all these people fleeing for their lives. And she says, go F yourselves. And like I say, I was not processing that. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I thought this is a separate conversation. I don't know what it is. In hindsight, as I've watched that over and over, it's like these people were not afraid. If they're saying the shooter's right over here, he's right behind us.
Yeah, what about the guy that jumps up is going, yay, yay, yay?
Well, yeah, he clearly wasn't afraid, but anyway, there was a segment of people there who were oblivious. There were other people who were scared for their lives. And then there were people there who had obvious contempt, not just for Charlie Kirk, but for all the people that were there supporting Charlie Kirk. And they weren't afraid for their lives. Now, if somebody's shooting a high-powered gun, you're going to be afraid. And
unless you're in the know, which they'd obviously brag to each other, then you're not acting like this.
Okay. Couple of pieces of information that stood out to me, and then I want to get your thoughts. So I'm not seeing anybody talking about the fact that after he jumps off the roof, he runs into these woods, and there's people saying they saw him get into a car and be taken away. We've not heard that. This representative says he doesn't believe the gun that they found was ever on that roof, which kind of makes sense because we've got no video going up and very limited grainy video of him coming down. Also, this representative was talking to Charlie Kirk just minutes before Charlie went down and all of the energy started. And then says that he sees this group, like gothic looking, trans, almost like people showing zero fear for their lives after a gunshot and everyone else is. What are your thoughts on this information from Representative Lyman?
Yeah, absolutely bombshell stuff. Well, it seems to me it's part of this larger concept of a terrorist cell that Robinson was a part of, that we're getting at least bits and pieces of evidence via the Discord chats and so forth. So what we're piecing literally together here is that he was part of a larger group. Now, to what extent that group is directly involved, we will have to determine over the coming days. But this was not a lone gunman. This was not a lone wolf. This does appear, again, we're still in the fog of war, as it were, but it does appear that we are dealing with some kind of radical far left. It looks like a kind of LGBT terrorist cell that that helped in some way, shape, or form kill one of the most influential conservative personalities on the planet. And so it's this is going to go beyond Robinson. I think this is going to, well, we're already seeing Antifa being implicated in this.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, why would Trump, I mean, outside of, I don't think he bows to pressure in that sense. I think he knows something. And certainly we got sort of this Antifa, the symbolism that was put in some of the casings for written on it, on what the recovered weaponry that we found, wherever it happens to be and whatever it happens to be. Again, we'll have to see. It's pretty compelling testimony that we just heard there. But it seems that this is bigger than just one person, and that this is something that is therefore going to be the basis for the dismantling and hopefully the burying of a major left-wing infrastructure that is basically crossed the line from cancel culture to assassination culture.
Yeah. Let me throw something at you, because I've been thinking about this a lot. There's two real issues. Obviously, a lot of people love Charlie Kirk. I was fortunate to interview him multiple times, go to his event. But I think what's going on right now is we have an American public that is very distrustful of the FBI. And why wouldn't they be, with
of course, yeah.
JFK, RFK, MLK going to war over and over and over again? Tulsi Gabbard said earlier this week that Dick Cheney invented a lie to drag us into war so that Colin Powell could get billions and billions of dollars for war. So you've got all of this, the Russiagate stuff, the mail-in ballots, the Hunter Biden laptop. They all go through this FBI apparatus. And on the other hand, you've got an American public that, like, the hottest thing in the last 10 years is true crime podcasts.
Right.
And we want information now. I'm just wondering your thought. What could Kash Patel, who I believe a lot of people trust and believe in, what could they be doing right now that would inspire some trust? Release some video, give us a timeline. They obviously know more than they're sharing, because we've gone from crime scene to conviction. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we do have to respect the evidential process as well. It's not something they can just throw out there willy-nilly. But no, I think accountability and transparency, those are two huge things. Now, accountability involves the mass firings. And to their credit, that is what we have been seeing in the FBI. It may not be as much as we want. I mean, you could critique sort of the degree of it, but there were no firings outside of good patriot agents during the Biden years. Now we're seeing firings left and right all over the place. James Comey's daughter is out of a job, for example, under the Justice Department in New York. So, no, they're definitely. I think they're cleaning house quite well, Kash and Dan Bongino. So I think the accountability aspect of it, at least when it comes to firings, we'll have to see with actual charges being brought on people like Comer, James Comey, and the like. And but then there's got to be some level of transparency. We have to feel like the FBI is on the level with us, especially when it comes to this. Again, to me, the good news is this, and you see this particularly with JD over the last week. You saw it with Tulsi, you saw it with RFK, who obviously has a major connection with assassinations, and you saw it with Trump. This was personal. You saw it with Don Trump Jr. This is not abstract. This is not personnel oriented. This is personal. Their dear friend was murdered, and they are pissed, and you can see it. Stephen Miller, you can see it. So that tells me they're doing something. And with Antifa now being declared officially a terrorist organization, that gives them all kinds of tools now, where funds now have to be by law frozen. They can't travel the way they could. Anyone who is connected with them in any way, shape, or form can be prosecuted right along with them. So they become, in effect, leprous with this. And then you have the full force of the FBI to come in on them. To me, it seems to me that's the basis they're using to enter into this dark underworld of terrorist cells, that far left terrorist cells, that I think they're going to have to find a way of being able to communicate with us in such a way that's both responsible to eventually the DOJ and the charges that'll be brought, but also re-legitimizing for an institution that's been so thoroughly discredited.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to watch the Democrats try to defend Antifa, or that Antifa doesn't really exist, right? Like whatever Trump does, they have to immediately take the opposite position, right? So, right. Oh, crime is bad. We love crime. Illegal immigrants are bad. We love illegals. Close the border. We need an open border, right? So
and now Jimmy Kimmel.
Yes.
So they've gone from illegal migrants to criminals to probably the most untalented, unfunny man on the planet. I mean, just talk about doubling down on 80-20 issues. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And so that's big in the news right now. Do you think though that we've gone too far? Like searching out these goblins on TikTok and reaching out to their employer and saying, hey, here's a video of somebody and these people being fired. Because I remember after January 6th, they were literally hunting grandmas down, right, and people that had walked in, and they were ruining their lives and they were jailing them. Your thoughts on if we've gone too far?
Oh no. No. Oh no. I think we're just beginning. I can't even conceive of that notion of going too far. I mean, I get it. We talking heads have to have something to talk about. But again, I'm just shooting from the hip here and just being completely honest. I find this a total waste of time. These are the rules. We didn't write them. We didn't create the battle plan. These are the rules. This is the war we're fighting. You and I could sit here and wax eloquently whether or not, I was talking about this with Cliff Maloney yesterday at Pennsylvania Chase, good friend of Charlie Kirk's. We could wax eloquently of whether or not we should have mail-in ballots. What does that conversation matter? They're there. And so now this is exactly Charlie Kirk's position. So we have to learn to use that weapon more effectively than they do. And that is what we're doing. We're showing them that they have never even seen what cancel culture really is. Yeah. Now, again, I can get into the nuances of it. I don't think this is cancel culture by any stretch of the imagination. They were canceling us because we refused to bend the knee that, women could have certain anatomy, male anatomy. We refuse to bend the knee to their lies. We are canceling them because they are demonic, because they're dancing on the grave of a murdered young husband and father and then laughing in the face of his children. They're demonic. I don't want those people as doctors or teachers or pilots or professionals. They are sick. They're nuts. And if we can't tell the difference between good and evil, then, then we've fallen victim, I think, to the trans ideology in our own way. I think our moral clarity is just so powerful right now. It's so illuminative. What we all witnessed was pure demonic evil in its most explicit form. And then we saw tens of thousands of leftists cheer it. So I want them gone from civil society. I want them excommunicated. I don't care. I like the way, J.D. Vance was accused of this when they blew up the boat of the Venezuelan drug smugglers in the Caribbean. Somebody said, that's a human rights violation. And if you pardon my French, he said, J.D. Vance responded, I don't give a shit what you call it. We blew them to smithereens, and that's what's going to happen to you if you try to smuggle, fentanyl into our country and kill hundreds of thousands of our citizens. We're done. We're done with we just witnessed a portion of a political party that assassinated a 31-year-old influencer. He was one of us. They assassinated him, and then they reveled in it. And so we're not dealing with conversations anymore. This is sickness. This is evil. And evil, it only stops when we stop it.
Yeah. Did you know a dangerous amount of microplastics are now being found in our water, food, bloodstream, even our brains? These tiny plastic particles, often invisible to the naked eye, carry toxic chemicals like BPA that disrupt hormones, damage DNA, and inflame our organs. They affect everything from metabolism to fertility, and have even been linked to cancer, neurological disorders, autoimmune disease, and developmental issues in children. The worst part, there's no way to avoid exposure. It's everywhere. But there is a way to fight back, and it starts in your gut. Your gut is your first line of defense. A healthy microbiome can bind to and break down microplastic toxins before they poison your cells. But if your own gut is compromised, those toxins sneak right through, wreaking havoc on your immune system, energy levels, digestion, skin, even your brain. That's why we're healing our guts through kimchi. Now, kimchi restores the gut flora in your gut. Because in a world full of plastic, your gut needs to be bulletproof. Today, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking on the link below, or you can use code Gardner to get 25% off your order. For an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore right now to get up to 50% off your order and free shipping. This stuff is great. It's been awesome for my gut, my bowels, my digestion, bowel movements. It's been awesome. And why save 25% when you can save up to 50% and get free shipping? Again, give them a call at 888-908-4425. Going back to your narco-terrorist comment, I loved what you said there, because it kind of made my point of whatever Trump does, they've got to take the opposite position, right? Like, you literally saw Democrats defending drug dealers, and the military is like, we tracked these people from Venezuela, loading the boats with drugs, going towards Miami and Louisiana and that southern part of the United States with enough drugs that could have killed 100 Americans, 1,000, 10,000 Americans. And they now make an example of people breaking the law.
Yeah.
And what happens? The Democrats come in and say, this is like, these people deserve their time in court. Well, what about the 10,000 families? What about the 100,000 people who have lost somebody to fentanyl? Everyone in America knows someone that's died of fentanyl.
Yeah, but Stephen, these are the people who swallowed the camel of open borders for 4 years, 11 million illegal migrants into our country. They didn't give a rip about the rule of law. then. Now they're going to gnat strain when it comes to due process. Give me a break.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to look at it. Swallow the camel, but complain about the gnat. That's a great way of putting it. So I saw I'll just flash this on the screen really quick. So just right before we went on, breaking news, the Senate has unanimously declared October 14th, Charlie Kirk's birthday, as the National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk. What a cool way to remember somebody who had such a influence on at least half the country.
Yeah.
And now I think that as a lot of people dig in, we're going to find that he actually opens the eyes of millions of more. I mean, I saw, this is really interesting. At first I was like, this is terrible. But one of the trending words that's being searched right now is, was Charlie Kirk a racist? And then they're going to be presented with dozens and dozens of videos of him not being a racist.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, from what I understand it, if not most Black influencers on YouTube and Rumble and so forth are crediting Charlie and Turning Point for giving them the platform that helped them launch their careers. I mean, he was best friends with Candace Owens. I mean, it's beyond absurd. MAGA, and it's based on this notion that MAGA is racist. And the only reason why you have that is because of this thing called progressive realism. Progressive realism is an ideology that believes that the arc of history is inevitably bends towards left-wing social justice. So that means that as long as we're on the side of the racially oppressed, the gender oppressed, the sexually oppressed, then by definition, we're on the right side of history. So they can only think in racial terms. They can only think in gender terms. They can only think in sexual terms. They literally cannot imagine the world outside of those frames of reference. So Charlie not being on the side of the progressive, by definition, must be a racist. By definition, he must be a sexist. By definition, he must be all kinds of phobic. By definition of this progressive realism. And what I think Charlie did better than anyone is he went from campus to campus demonstrating that there is another way of looking at the world. That progressive realism is a bunch of nonsense. And then if you break out of those frames of reference, the world starts making a lot more sense. You become a lot less angry. You become a lot more grateful to God for everything that you have. And you begin to sense the eternally true, good, and beautiful that are captured by Western civilization. And then you want to preserve that rather than destroy it. So to me, it's like, to hell with these. Again, I don't care what any of them think anymore. I did on September 9th. I don't care anymore. I think they just need to be fully and completely and totally defeated. So I'm very glad that Trump is repeatedly using the term far leftist terrorism, because that is going to give him the tools he needs to dismantle as much as the left as possible.
Yeah. And he's already doing it. And we're seeing a surge in Republican voter registration, people wanting to go forward. I saw that Erica Kirk was named the CEO of Turning Point. So a lot of good things are going to come out of this.
Stephen, what did you think of that speech that she gave?
I told my wife, like, I would not have been that composed. I would have been just a blubbering mess of a human being. So kudos for her for just having the courage and the grace to stand up and speak on behalf of her husband to the world. Amazing.
We needed to hear that too. Yeah. I think we were all so devastated and distraught, and we needed to hear from Erica. There was just not that anyone would obligate her by any stretch, just like you're saying, but she did that, I think, for us and for the nation and for much of the world, as we're seeing, all the demonstrations of support coming out in Britain, South Korea, and the like.
Yeah. Let me switch gears with you. Jasmine Crockett, who's lost her seat down in Texas. She is saying that the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris presidency was a complete failure because they failed to lock Donald Trump up for the rest of his life. Let me go ahead and play this, and then we'll watch it or we'll comment on it.
I did say that I had one issue with the Biden-Harris administration. It is the fact that they did not move forward and make sure that this man was put where he should have been put. Because the last time I checked as a criminal defense attorney, and Mr. Attorney General, you may have a different experience, but I never had a defendant that had 34 convictions for felonies and did not spend one day in jail. Never in my life. And the last time I checked, the party of law and order is the only one that decided that they would be out of order and decided to nominate someone who was not only indicted, but was actually convicted of multiple felonies. That has never happened in this country. And it is a shame that we are dealing with it now. And now he wants to tell y'all how to do your jobs.
Wow. Why don't you just come right out and tell us the secret plan? Lock Donald Trump up for life. My worry is if by some crazy situation the Democrats, are able to be successful in 2026, this is the playbook. They're going to immediately impeach him, immediately move to remove him, and if removed, they're going to try to jail him again. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Jasmine Crockett there?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, they're not a political party anymore. They're basically social terrorists at this point. I mean, the technical term is stochastic terrorism. That's a term that's been going around quite a bit. I've noticed. But it involves stochastic terrorism involves demonizing and dehumanizing groups or individuals through a radically hostile rhetoric that, while not explicitly calling for violence, though I do think imprisonment is a kind of violence, but while not explicitly calling for violence, it statistically increases the likelihood of lone wolf attacks or cell attacks or what have you. It's also known as a contagion effect. But the upshot here is that literally kind of lunatic rhetoric that you're hearing from Jasmine Crockett, she knows full well those 34 counts are absolutely bogus. She knows that. She knows that was a kangaroo court. She knows all that, but it doesn't matter because to her, truth has been radically politicized. And for her, if she has control over the party, and increasingly the lunatic left is, that's how they're going to do politics from now on. So that, like I said, we didn't write the playbook. They did. So I think we have to do everything we possibly can, from redistricting to massive voter registration drives to massive get out the vote drives and so forth, to capitalize on the momentum that is already happening quite organically, to ensure that the Democrats are permanently boxed out of federal political power for the rest of the century, period. Full stop, as a borderline illiterate Otto Penn Supreme Court justice would say.
I mean, one thing I'm excited about for next year, other than the 250th anniversary of America, is President Trump. He's got $1 billion in his war chest to help with the election. He also wants to do this national convention. So the president's going to step in a big way to get people excited. My guess is a lot will be, if you don't get out and vote, we will lose, and everything we fought for will be lost. And that is the truth. Your thoughts on this national convention idea?
Oh, again, I think it's brilliant. I think it's excellent because, again, it's part of galvanizing. So Stephen, you and I know you know this, and your listeners know this. But the problem we're facing right now is we have the low propensity voter. Okay, so as long as our voters were suburban and middle to upper middle class and so on, suburban voters, they tend to be high propensity voters. They've come out in 3 of the last 4 elections. With the shift to rural and the working class voter, both rural and urban. So we're talking the non-white working class voter as well, primarily Latino, remember, Latino men shifted over to Trump they voted for Trump by over 10 points in 2024. With that, we inherited a voter that unfortunately only votes about 1 out of the last 4 elections. Now, they tend to come out for Trump, but if he's not on the ballot, that low to no propensity voter like we found in 2022 can really hurt us. We still won the majority, but not by much.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is we have to do a massive get out the vote campaign. If we do that, we're good. That's what we found in 2024. If we do that, like with Pennsylvania Chase or what Charlie did in Arizona wasn't even close. We have to remember that Arizona has been trending blue and got kind of purplish. And then all of a sudden, 2024, it shifted massively to the right. I forget, Trump won Arizona by 7 points or so. Katie Hobbs is done. She's going to fall apart. I think they're going to be at around a +10 voter registration. Not quite Utah or anything, but they're moving certainly in that direction, as is Nevada, as is New Mexico, interestingly enough. So what they were able to do is they were able to get this and Cliff Maloney of Pennsylvania Chase, this massive get out the vote campaign to make sure that everybody who needs a mail-in ballot gets one, and then to make sure they sent it in. You have to have the follow-up. So you have to knock on 500,000 doors. So did you get your ballot? Did you fill it out? All right. And did you send it in? All right. Let me help you. Can I, so you have all kinds of techniques of being able to get that vote out. And I think what Trump is seeing is he's seeing the convention as sort of the mecca, the center of the get out the vote campaign. And I wish we had Charlie here because he would, obviously his organizational skills were second to none in terms of being able to put together a massive get out the vote campaign. But TPUSA is still there. Pennsylvania Chase is still there. Scott Pressler is still there. They're still all out there ready to superimpose this new get out the vote infrastructure for the low propensity voter so that they're low propensity no more. And that's the key. If you've got that infrastructure in place so that now there's no possible excuse for them not to vote because you have precisely the kind of support network you need to get those votes in, I think Democrats are toast.
Yeah. Oh, your lips to God's ears and then to Americans' hands and feet to get out and actually do the vote. You've got a new book out. It's done really well, America Awaken. I'm going to put a link to that down below. I did have a couple of questions for you. You and I, we've interviewed each other a couple of times. We've talked a couple of times. You're very optimistic, and I love that about you. But you talk about this idea of living in the most exciting time in modern history. Why? Help me and my audience understand why you believe that.
Yeah, great question. I do. In the book, I call the era the most exciting in modern history because, even though we are meeting so many challenges, even though we're seeing so much of it, like we began our discussion with the FBI, so many of our public institutions in decline. And even though we've been witnessing, and we talked about the crime issues, the crumbling cities, and all the cultural confusion, there is in our midst, and I know you're reporting on it a lot, you're on the front lines of it, there is a surge of renewal happening, the likes of which we've never even imagined. Faith, family, national traditions, what globalist elites all sought to suppress are being revived in ways that we never even imagined. Again, Charlie was talking about this a lot in the last few months. For example, we're seeing the rise of what's called restoration politics, which involves a return to a nation's culture, customs, and traditions after decades of globalist interventionism. And it's basically, it's technically a form of what's called at a larger level re-territorialization. So these fancy schmancy words of talking about how it's the opposite of like globalism. What it did is it centralized political power in the hands of a small, tiny minority elite. So it disembedded political and economic power away from the people, as it were, away from the local. And it reallocated that power and that economics in the hands of very, very few. It's technically known as refeudalization, where more power and affluence is in the hands of less and less people. So I think like 5 years ago, 400 billionaires owned 50% of the world's assets. Today, it's just 100 billionaires. And so we see that in Davos, we see that in Brussels, we're seeing it obviously in DC with the big grab bag slush fund that was like USAID and so forth. We see it with Soros. But now that it seems to have just, again, very organically at a planetary level, just run its course. And now that it's breaking up, we're seeing that sort of that refeudalization, that centralization break apart. And now all this political power is getting re-territorialized. And as a result, we're seeing a restorationist politics. So we're seeing a renewal of orthodoxy in Russia, the likes of which we haven't seen since the czars, a return to Confucian China, the awakening of a Hindu nationalist India, an Ottoman Turkey, and of course, a Make America Great Again. Again, notice again, this is restorationism, the notion that going back is the best way going forward. So there's this sense among more and more people than ever that something has gone horribly wrong in our country. And again, world populations are all experiencing this. Something's gone horribly wrong. So we deviated from the path. So we have to go back and to the point before things went wrong and then pick up where we left off. So that is this restorationism. That is this kind of archaeo-modernity where the best way forward is by returning. And we're seeing that restorative significance everywhere. We're seeing it in education, particularly in the booming popularity of classical education, with thousands of new schools focusing on teaching children how to think, not just what to think. Families leaving public schools in search of deeper, virtue-driven learning. We're seeing a similar renewal in the visible growth of what I like to call the patriot economy. It used to be the parallel economy, but now it's increasingly mainstream. Certainly Elon Musk has made it mainstream, where entrepreneurs are building businesses grounded in American values and the increasing influence of the alternative media. We are the media now that's completely bypassing the old legacy media complex, the way email and texting bypasses the old post office. And I see these movements as very tangible evidence of a new era of civilizational renewal. So we're seeing, while we're seeing at the same time that so much of our society sort of, rotting and imploding, it's functioning as compost, Stephen. That's the way I like to think of it. It's functioning as compost so that the seeds of a new springtide civilizational revival can emerge.
Oh man, that's a great way. So we're the phoenix rising from the ashes. The crap that has been left behind is the compost. I love that. That's a great way of looking at it. One thing that your book talks about that I just want to get your thoughts on is you talk about this 80-20 doom loop. And it seems like the Democrats, they're caught in the doom loop, but they're on the 20%, and Trump is on the 80%, which is why I think he won. Help my audience understand this 80-20 doom loop.
Yeah, that's a great one. And it does help to understand why the Democrats are becoming more and more alienated from the common sense consensus. So the 80-20 doom loop refers to Democrats doubling down on positions that only about the 20% of the most extreme radicals support, like, open borders or radical gender policies, or what, defund the police and siding with criminals, siding with drug dealers, siding with Jimmy Kimmel. They're doing that. They're planting their flags on these very unpopular positions while ignoring the extremely common sense priorities embraced by, we just generally call it the 80%. And so when you look at all the polls, when it comes to border security, when it comes to mass deportations of illegal migrants, when it comes to making ourselves energy independent, when it comes to bringing back manufacturing and industry, when it comes to getting rid of DEI, when it comes to getting rid of trans athletes in women's sports, those are all what we call 80% issues. They have super majority support in any and every poll that you see. So unless Democrats make a dramatic shift, unless they start back. And again, you're seeing that with really only one, and that's John Fetterman. He supports border security. He's supporting families. He's supporting opposing excessive government spending, all this sort of stuff. Unless they do that, they risk further irrelevance. See, the data shows Democrats are losing registered voters in every single swing state and in every single state that tracks voter registration by party. So there's about 30 states where when you register, I believe Utah is one of them, where if you by opposite, say take Minnesota. Minnesota will show that you're registered to vote, but it won't show your party. There are a lot of states that I think about 20 states do not show partisan affiliation. The other 30 do. And in every single state where they show party affiliation, the Democrats are losing 30 out of 30. Wow. It's stunning stuff. They're losing in every single swing state. Again, Arizona is not a swing state anymore. Increasingly, North Carolina isn't. Pennsylvania isn't. And where Pennsylvania goes, Wisconsin and Michigan go. So in every state that's breaking down the voter registration trends by party, they're losing. And the Republicans are winning. And I think that's reflective of the fact that the supermajority back issues that are themselves backed by the GOP. Very common sense. It's not right or left. It's very common sense issues. Another way of looking at it, Stephen, is that is to think of our politics as a populist divide as opposed to a partisan divide. I know it's always going to have a partisan outworking. You got to vote for one of the parties. But it's much, much more of a populist divide than partisan. What do I mean? Partisan is a left-right issue. It's a horizontal divide between, Republicans versus Democrats, conservatives versus liberals, right versus left. But a populist divide sees that horizontal divide and it kind of reimagines it vertically. So more and more people, and we saw this with the Tea Party, more and more people see the two parties as basically the same. They're like a duopoly, or the uniparty or something like that. So they're both distrusted equally. They're both seen as seeking to advance the values, interests, concerns of a political elite rather than the people. And so increasingly our politics revolve around issues that appeal to a mass swath of people. Now, we're not talking 50-50 anymore, because now the divide is vertical. Then all the issues that the population supports get 60, 70, 80, 85, 90% support. And guess who is tapped into that? Trump and the MAGA movement. So the Democrats are stuck in this sort of 20% permanent political class issues that if they do not resolve that, they are going to be, I think, permanently alienated and de-aligned from the vast majority of the population.
Yeah. When President Trump first announced that he was going to run for a third time, he gave a speech, and there was one line in there where I said, "That's it. I'm voting for this man." He said, "The Republican Party has become the party of common sense." And I was like, that's exactly what we need. After covering the Biden administration and the lack of common sense, I was like, that's all I need. I need common sense and courage. And so it's been great so far. And what a blessing to be able to cover this presidency compared to the last one. Sure. Yeah. Dr. Turley, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to put a direct link to America Awakened as well as your YouTube channel so that people can find you very easily. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you to your audience. You guys are amazing.